Good morning, everyone. In last session, we have seen what is auto DDL. We have seen what is auto DDL in ORM. Okay, right. Now, what is auto DDL in ORM, guys? What is auto DDL in ORM?
It can
It will
able to
create
create
the
the
table
table
automatically
automatically. No need of writing any
based on this
SQL query.
property. It will provide some function.
To generate tables dynamically. ORM provided support to generate tables dynamically. So to generate these tables, we will configure one property. We will configure one property in application.properties file. In application.properties file. What is that? Spring.jp properties.ddl. What is the name of the property, sir? HPM to DDL in the Hibernate, it is DDL auto DDL or DDL to auto, something is there. Okay. Now here we can provide the options. We'll provide one option as a update. Okay. What will happen if I give that option name as update?
First,
What
it
will
will
happen if I
check
give the option as
the
update?
table is there or not.
It will check whether the table is there or not. If not, it will
If the table
create.
is not there, if the table is not there, it is going to, if the table is not there, it is going to create the table. If the table is not there, it is going to create the table also. To generate these tables, we'll configure one property in application.properties file. Spring.jpa.properties.ddl to auto is equal to update. Now, to print queries on the console, we will configure show SQL property. We'll configure show SQL property. Right now, that also spring.jpa.properties.show SQL. Show SQL is equal to true. To print queries on the console, we'll configure show SQL property. Spring.jpa.properties.show SQL is equal to true. We'll configure that property. Now, to work with HQL or JPQL queries, we will configure dialect class. To work with HQL or JPQL queries, we'll configure dialect class. Guys, what is the purpose of dialect class?
Dialect
classes.
SQL query to SQL query.
Dialect
Into
classes
SQL queries.
are used to convert HQL or JPQL queries to SQL
queries.
queries.
Sir, what is JPQL query?
SQL queries means
Java persistence query language.
All right. Now, sir, HQL stands for Hibernate Query Language. JPQL stands for Java Persistence Query Language. These are database independent queries. Okay. So if we write the queries in HQL, then whenever you change from one database to another database, you no need to modify your queries. Dialect classes will convert your HQL queries to underlying SQL queries. Convert HQL queries to underlying SQL queries. Able to understand that? Now, so if you configure dialect class, then the dialect class will convert your HQL queries to underlying SQL queries. Our Hibernate framework supports for more than 30 dialect classes. That means without changing a single query, you can change from one database to another database. You can change from one database to another database. Now, in order to configure that dialect class also, we have property that is also that is also one of the ORM property. So if you want to use those ORM benefits, then you can configure those ORM properties. If you want to use the ORM benefits, like table can be generated dynamically. For enabling the table generation, we need to configure this DDL to auto. Okay, if you want to print the queries on the console, we'll configure show SQL property, right? So how to configure that? Spring dot jpa dot properties dot show SQL is equal to true. To work with HQL or JPQL queries, we will configure dialect class. Dialect classes are used to convert HQL JPQL queries to SQL queries. Are you able to understand this? Now, how to configure that dialect class? Let me take the property from this IDE, sir. How to configure those dialect classes now? For every database, one dialect class will be available. For every database, one dialect class will be available. For every database, one dialect class will be available. Suppose if you are going for Oracle database, then we'll configure Oracle dialect. If you go for MySQL database, it contains MySQL dialect. Okay, if you go for H2DB, H2 dialect class will be available. Or if you go for PostgreSQL database, if you go for PostgreSQL database, Postgres dialect will be available. PostgreSQL dialect will be available like this. For every database, one dialect will be available, which is used to convert HQL or JPQL queries into underlying database queries. HQL or JPQL queries to underlying database queries. So you can work with database independent queries in your application so that maintenance of the project will be easy. Tomorrow, if you want to change from one database to another database, you no need to bother about the queries that you have written in the application. Suppose if you write SQL queries in application, then can you change from one database to another database easily, or is it going to become difficult?
It's going to become difficult.
It is going to be difficult because some of the SQL syntaxes from one database to another database will be different. Okay, now, so this is DDL-auto property. DDL-auto. The name of the property is DDL-auto. Not DDL to auto, it is DDL-auto. Update I am giving. Show SQL is equal to true I am giving. Similarly, we can configure dialect class also here. You can configure dialect class also here. One second. Let us see the property for the dialect.
Database platform, sir. Spring dot database platform. JPA dot.
Spring dot
JPA dot
database
platform.
There you can configure dialect class.
org dot.
Directly you can configure that property will be there, na? Spring dot JPA dot
Not there, sir, here.
properties database platform. One second, let me check. Yep.
org dot hibernate dot dialect
Configure
dot MySQL.
dialect in
Properties.hibernate.dialect.
how to configure dialect in Spring. Why is up there? Check in the Google. You can take. How do I set the Hibernate dialect in Spring Boot? So start using the internet. Spring.jpa.properties.hibernate.dialect. Like this, they can configure a dialect class. You can use this approach. Database platform also you can use, or Spring.jpa platform org.hibernate.dialect.oracle10g dialect. Database platform is the key. For that value, org.hibernate.dialect.oracle10g dialect you can configure, 11g dialect you can configure, Oracle dialect also you can configure for that. So like this, you can configure a dialect class. Even if you don't configure based on the driver, it can auto detect which dialect it has to use. Okay.
Sir, we will write spring.jpa.properties like that.
That also you can do, sir. Spring.jpa properties data hibernate dialect. That also you can write, or JPA database platform also you can write. Two separate keys are there. You can use any one. Now let us go to our test class and see what method you are calling here. Here we are calling save method. We are calling save method. Let me give that ID as a 105. Okay. Open our database. SQL developer we are using for that. Yeah, let's run this application. We are trying to insert a record with ID as 105. Let us see the behavior.
Last year query complete.
Application is getting started. Connect to the database.
Sir, if we don't specify, automatically will it detect based on the properties?
Yes, sir, it can detect it. It can detect it. Now see here, it detect, we configure the property and it is taking Oracle 10G dialect using the dialect class. Okay. So why the dialect? It is used to convert that HQL queries to underlying SQL queries. Now select the star from resource details, our table name, where we are trying to insert the record. Resource underscore DTLS. Record saved. You can see when I execute that save method, first it is trying to select the record. It is going to check whether record is available in that table or not. Then we are calling, it is executing insert query, because with the given primary key, there is no record available. That's why it is inserting that record. If the record is already available with the same primary key, then it might have updated that record. So with 105, let's check, do we have any record in the table? Select star from table name. Select star from table name. Okay. Yes, with 105, there is a record available in the database. The record is inserted with the 105. Now, so let me try to insert the same record by modifying name of the resource. Instead of Ashok, I'm giving it as Kumar. Okay, name, skill, and experience I have given. Now tell me how many queries will execute and which queries will execute.
Now 2 queries will be executed, select and update.
Two queries are going to execute. One is the select query and another one is the
Update query.
One is the select query and another one is the
Update query.
Update query. So one is the select query and another one is the update query is going to execute here. Excellent. Let's try this. Application started. Now see here guys, select query got executed. with the 105, as the record is already available, the next query it find is the update query. Now, check in the database, record is updated or not. Yep, the name of the 105 record is updated to Kumar. So can I say that save method is a polymorphic method now?
Yes, sir.
We can call that save method is a polymorphic method. Excellent. Guys, fine. So with this, you understood what are the ORM properties that mainly we are going to configure, right? One is the show SQL property. Another one is a DDL auto. Another one is a dialect class. Like this, there are so many ORM properties are available in the Spring data JPA in the Hibernate. You can configure all those properties. Spring dot properties dot Hibernate dot Spring dot JPA dot, like that. So you can use these keys, and based on the requirement, we are going to configure those properties. So Spring dot data source dot, right? Data, cache, transaction related, DBCP, connection pool, Hikari connection pool. Hikari connection pool properties also that we are going to configure. In the connection pool concept, I'm going to explain that part.
Sir, previously we are not using Oracle dialect. Is it use Oracle dialect by default?
Yes, sir. Even if you don't configure it, you will use Oracle dialect. Suppose if I commented this property, it is
Based on
commented.
database, it will generate.
I have commented this property. Now let's run this application. Now I have not configured any dialect here. Now just I have configured show SQL DDL auto. Now let us run this application. No, I have not configured any dialect class. I have not configured any dialect class in my project. Here, is it choosing the dialect or not by default?
Yes.
Is it choosing the dialect or not by default?
Yes.
Yes, it is choosing the dialect by default. Okay. Now it executed only select query. Why it executed only select query now?
Already the record available.
Basically, we have not changed anything.
Already
No,
same
everything
Yeah.
is there in
So-
database.
Record is already available with the same primary key, so it should not insert that record. Now it compared, is the record available in the database and the record we are trying to insert, both are same or not? As both are same, nothing is different here, then why to update the same record again? Okay, that's why it is not firing any update query. It generated only select query. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Fine. Guys, next one, another important concept that we need to learn in the ORM is generators concept. Okay, so we need to work with generators. Right now, guys, see here. Let me truncate this table. Guys, please mute your mic. Sabir Hussain Sudhir Ja, please mute your mics. Now, select start from resource details. Some records are available now. Let me truncate this table. Truncate table resource underscore DTLS. Truncate table resource DTLS. Now I'm trying to delete the records available in the database table. Now let's commit this transaction. Good. Good. Now table doesn't have any record. Now we need to develop the application which is used to insert the record into the table. Guys, whenever we are inserting the records into the table, are we going to ask the end user to enter the value for primary keys? Generally,
No.
are we going
No,
to
sir.
ask the end
It is
user to
automatically
enter the values
generated.
for primary keys? We should
No.
not, because
Yes.
end users are not the programmers, may not be the programmers.
Yes, sir.
End users don't know what is a primary key. So there is a chance that those people may enter duplicate values. There is a chance that those people may enter a duplicate values. But what is the meaning of primary key?
It should
The
be
primary key, nothing but it is a combination of two constraints. Primary key is nothing but combination of two constraints.
unique,
Primary key
null.
is a constraint. Primary key is a constraint which is combination of below two constraints.
Unique until
Primary key is a constraint which is a combination of below two constraints.
Constraint.
First one is not null.
not null.
Second one is unique. First one is not null and second one is unique. That means there should not be duplicate value. Every value, every column value in the every record, every primary key value should be unique, and that column should not contain null value. It should have some data that should be unique data. That is the meaning of the primary key. Now, suppose let us go for our website. Here we are having contact us form. Here we are having contact us form. In the contact us form, they are entering the data. We need to store the data in the database. To store this data in the database, we will have a table. The table will have a primary key. So can I ask that person to enter the contact ID also? If I ask the contact ID, can you guarantee everybody will use 1, 2, 3, 4 in the sequence manner, or people will enter the random number?
Random number.
People will enter the random number. So do you know what number entered by the person who filled this contact form before you? You don't know, because this application can be accessed from any location across the globe. People can access our application and they can fill the details. So if I ask you to enter the contact ID, is there any chance that you may enter the value which is already entered by someone? Is there is a probability or there is no probability for that?
There is a chance.
There is a chance. So now I entered a record with 100 as a contact ID. If you also entered a contact ID as 100, is our database table will accept that record, or database table will not accept that record?
You will not accept.
Database table will not accept that record. Then your record will not be inserted to our table. It is going to throw primary key violation exception. If you insert a record without following these two constraints, then it will throw primary key violation exception. If we try to insert a record, with duplicate data, if we try to insert a record with duplicated data for primary key column, then it will throw primary key constraint violation exception.
Unique key constraint.
Primary key constraint violation exception. That means, boss, there is a rule for a primary key, but you are trying to violate those rules, so I can't accept this record. That exception we are going to get. Now, if we ask end users to enter the data for primary key column, they may enter duplicate data. To avoid this problem, instead of asking end user to enter the primary key value, instead of asking end user to enter primary key value, our application should generate the value for that. Our application should generate value for that primary key column. Primary key is a constraint which is a combination of below two constraints. One is not null constraint, another one is unique constraint. Now, if we try to insert a record with duplicated data for primary key column, then it will throw primary key constraint violation exception. Okay, primary key is a constraint which is a combination of below two constraints, not null constraint and unique constraint. If we try to insert a record with the duplicate data for the primary key column, then it will throw primary key constraint violation exception. So if we ask the end user to enter that record, there may be a chance of getting that duplicate exception, right? That's why in the real time, what we will do is we don't ask end user to enter the value for the primary key. Instead of asking them, our application will generate the value for the primary key column. To generate the primary key column in the application, to generate the data for primary key column, to generate primary key column value, we will use generator provided by Hibernate. We will use generators provided by Hibernate. Now, guys, could you please tell me what is the purpose of generators in the Hibernate?
To generate primary column value.
To generate the value for the primary key column. Generators are used to generate the value for primary key column. Now, Hibernate provided several generators. Hibernate provided several generators to generate the value for primary key. Hibernate provided several generators to generate the value for primary key. Hibernate provided several generators to generate the value for primary key. Every generator having its own algorithm. Every generator having its own algorithm to generate the value for primary key. Hibernate provided several generators to generate the value for primary key. Every generator having its own algorithm to generate the value for primary key. Okay, now, so let us see here how we are going to work with that generator. Now, currently, I am trying to insert a record into the table by setting the primary key. Actually, should we set the primary key value manually?
No.
We should not.
No.
Remove it. We should not remove it. I'm setting the data for only name, skill, experience. But if you check the table, describe our table. Describe resource details. Describe resource details. Describe table name. Then it will show you the details of the table. How many columns are there? What are the data types of those columns? And what is the primary key? Here, resource ID is a primary key. In my program, am I setting the value for the resource ID or I'm not setting the value for the resource ID?
No, we are not setting.
I'm not setting the value for the resource ID. Now, let us try to execute it. Let us try to execute this application. I'm not setting the resource ID and I'm trying to insert the record. Run the program. Run the program. Yeah. Is it successful or it is failed?
It failed.
It is failed. It is failed. It is failed. Now, see this JPA system exception we got. IDs for this class must be manually assigned before calling the save method. Nested exception, identify a generation exception. IDs for this class must be assigned manually before calling the save method. So what it is saying that, boss, in order to save this record, you need to set the value for the primary key column. Are we setting the value for the primary key column or we are not setting the value for the primary key column?
We are not setting.
We are not setting the value for the primary key column.
Primary key.
Now, let's observe carefully. I'm going to make a small change to my generator class. Sorry, my entity class. Look at the entity class now. Which variable is mapped to primary key column here?
ID.
Resource ID.
Resource ID. How can you say that it is mapped to primary key column?
Annotation
ID.
At the rate ID is available. Now, I will give one more annotation here, which is called generated value. I will give one more annotation, which is called generated value for this. Generated value for this. At the rate ID, for that I'm giving at the rate generated value for this. Good. Now save it. Guys, observe carefully. I'm going to run my application. Only one change I have made. I have added one new annotation to my variable, which is mapped to primary key column. Now run this. Run this. Yes. Record is inserted or not?
Yeah.
Can you see the queries here? Select query for what? Select
Hibernate sequence.
select hibernate.sequence.next12 from dual. That means whenever we use Oracle database, by default, Hibernate will use sequence to generate the value for primary key. Now check your database. Select star from resource details. What is the resource ID? It has given 15064. Okay. Now let me insert one more record with the details. Now execute it. Now execute it. Check the console. Check the console. Yeah, record is inserted or not. What it is doing now? Select Hibernate sequence dot next 12 from dual. Insert the record into this database table. Now go to this. Sequence number is coming or not? 15064, 15065. Let's insert one more record. Let's insert one more record. Okay. Now execute it. Execute it. Select Hibernate sequence dot next 12 from dual. Insert into resource details. Now record is inserted. Now check it. Are we able to get the sequence numbers or not?
Yes.
64, 65, 60. But you may have your doubt, sir. First record should start with 1, but why it started with 15064? The reason is in my database table, there is a sequence which is already created with a name called Hibernate underscore sequence. Now let me drop this sequence. If I delete it, then the records will start from 1. Drop the sequence. Apply. I'm deleting the sequence which is already created in the database. Who created that sequence? Hibernate only created that sequence. Now let me truncate the table also. First time when you use this, that sequence will be created with 1. Truncate table resource details. Now commit it. Select table, no record available. Now let's run the same application. Let's run the same application. Let's run the same application. Guys, observe here query. What is this query?
Architects created
Start with
Start with 1 and increment by 1.
By default, sequence is created. Create sequence. Hibernate underscore sequence. Start with 1. Increment by 1. Then select Hibernate sequence dot next 12 from dual. Then insert the record into the table. Now go to the database table and check for the record. Is it starting with 1 or not?
Yes.
Resource ID.
Yes, 1.
Freshly sequence is created. Why that sequence is created means here we have update option. Here we have update option. If I change this update option to create, every time sequence also will be dropped, and like table, every time table will be recreated. In the same way, the sequence also will be recreated. Now, if I insert one more record, now it will start with 2. It will start with 2. Because already 1 is there. Now for the next record, it is going to take the number as 2. Sequence of numbers we are going to get. That sequence is created. It is starting with 1 and it is incrementing by 1. So first query is executing to retrieve the value from the sequence for the record. Then it is inserting that record. Now go to table, select that. Are we able to get the resource ID as 2?
Yes.
Yes, we got the resource ID as 2. Clear. Next. Guys, now here whenever we give generated value, it is working based on the database. If you are using Oracle database, then only it will use the sequence, because sequence is the database dependent concept. Sequence is the database dependent concept. Suppose if you go for MySQL database will not support for the sequences. It will use auto increment concept. It will use auto increment concept in the MySQL. Able to understand?
Yes, sir.
Auto increment concept will be used in the MySQL database. Excellent. Anybody having any questions on this generated value? This generated value annotation is enabling generators for our application. You can read this. Provides the general specification of generating strategies for the values of the primary keys. May be applied to a primary key property or a field of an entity or mapped superclass in the conjunction with the annotation. The use of the generated value annotation is only required to be supported for the simple primary keys. Use of this annotation is not supported for the derived primary keys. So any simple primary keys that if you have, any simple primary keys if you have, then you can configure them by using this generated value. It is using a default sequence. What is the name of the default sequence here? Hibernate underscore sequence. Sometimes what people will do is, I don't want to use the default sequence. For every table primary key, I want to create my custom sequence. Now see here how to create a custom sequence. Create sequence name, resource underscore ID underscore sequence. Start with 1, increment by 1.
1.
Start with 1 and increment by 1. I'm creating my own sequence, guys. I'm creating my own sequence. Name is already using by the existing object. Okay, let me drop it. Let me drop the existing.
Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hi guys, now see here, I'm trying to create a sequence in the database table. Okay, now let me refresh it once. Is there any sequence with a name called resource underscore ID underscore sequence?
No.
No, no, enter. Now sequence got created, commit this. What is the name of the sequence, guys? Resource ID underscore sequence. It is starting with 1 and it is incrementing by 1. Start with 1 and increment by 1. So in the initial class, I explained best practices while working with persistence layer. So what I told in the best practices, every primary key should contain its own sequence. Every primary key should contain its own sequence. Now let me configure this sequence to generate the value for primary key. From where it is going to start the primary key value for the table?
1.
1.
And for the next record, it is going to increment by 1. So it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that.
Okay.
Right now. So to configure that custom sequence, here we have a annotation called @sequence generator. @sequence generator. Name is equal to, what is the name of the sequence? Resource ID sequence. You can give any name for that. Resource RESSEQ. Next one, what is the actual name of the sequence? Actual name of the sequence, resource ID sequence. Allocation size 1. Allocation size is equal to 1 because we are incrementing that by 1. Now in the generated value, we need to configure strategy is equal to, what is the strategy we are following? Sequence strategy we are following, comma, generator is equal to, the name that you have given should be configured here. Generator is equal to resource underscore sequence. Primary key value represented by using ID annotation. And here we have given one more annotation called sequence generator, which is used to configure user defined sequence in our application. If you don't write that, it will take a default sequence which is called hibernate underscore sequence. Hibernate underscore sequence. Now I don't want to do that. I want to configure my own sequence for the primary key column. So that's why I have created a sequence in the database, right? Create sequence, sequence name, start with 1, increment by 1. Now, next, then after that sequence generator, see here what are the properties that I'm configuring for sequence generator. Name is equal to resource sequence. You can give this name as anything. You can give as ABC also. If you give the name is equal to ABC, that name you need to configure as a generator name. Okay. Now, after that, what is the sequence that you have created in the database? That sequence name you need to configure here, and the allocation size. What is the increment by value you have given? That value you need to supply. Now, For the generated value, we need to
Sir,
specify.
increment by 1 we already given, right, while creating the
Here
sequence.
also we
Again,
need
why
to
it is
specify,
required?
sir. Here also we need to specify. Okay. Here also we need to specify. Then only it will understand what value you configure. Both values should match. Right. Now, whenever you have given this generated value, you need to specify which generation strategy you want to use to generate the value for primary key. Which strategy we want to use? We want to use the sequence strategy. So generated value strategy is equal to generation type dot sequence. Sequence strategy it is using. Generator is equal to ABC. So here the name is available. That name you are configuring as a generator name. It is a sequence generator. Now, when we insert the record, this data JPA will use our sequence to get the value for the primary key. This is the real-time approach. In the real time, nobody will use Hibernate sequence. That is a default only. That is a default. For every table, primary key column, we will configure user-defined sequences, right? So I have explained how to create a user-defined sequence in the database. Right, create sequence name, start with 1, increment by 1. And guys, please remember, this sequence will not support in the MySQL database. Sequence will support only in the Oracle database. Okay, good. The people who are using MySQL database, they can't work with the sequences. They need to use identity generator for that. So I will tell you how to work with identity generator also. Now, like this, you need to configure user-defined sequence.
Okay.
Like this, you need to configure user-defined sequence in the entity class. Now, it will use the configured sequence to generate the value for the primary key column. Now, let us try to execute it. Select start from table name. Already 2 records are available, so let me truncate the table. Truncate table name, that is resource underscore DTLS. Table is truncated. Now save it. Execute. There is no record available in the table. Now I have configured a custom sequence for the primary key, which is resource underscore ID underscore sequence. We have created this sequence in the database, which is starting with 1 and incrementing by 1. Interviewer may ask you how to configure a custom sequence for the primary key mapped column, primary key mapped variable. Like this, you need to write that.
So allocation.size will override the database increment value.
Both
So
should be same, sir. Both should be same. That is what I'm telling.
okay.
Yeah. Now I am running my application. Yeah. Now from where it is taking that sequence value? Is it taking from the default sequence or is it taking from the user-defined sequence we configured?
User-defined
User-defined sequence that we have configured. Now select the records. Select start from resource details. Is it inserting the resource ID as 1? Yes or no?
Yes.
It is inserted the record with the ID as 1 that is generated from our sequence. Now let me change the record. Let me change the record. Yeah. Now, selected the value from the sequence. It is selected that value from the sequence and it is trying to insert that. Now check the table. Is it inserting the record as 2 with the ID 2? Yep, that record got inserted with the ID as 2. So guys, do you understand how to create user-defined sequence and how to configure that user-defined sequence in the entity class?
Yes, sir.
Good. So with this knowledge, today I am giving you one video where you will understand how to work with custom generators. Here we are using predefined generator. Today I will give you a mail. In that mail, I will give the link how to work with custom generators. Okay. So what is custom generator? Why we need to go for that? And how to work with that custom generator? That is 1 hour concept. That is also important in the interview. They may ask you a question, how to work with custom generators. So in our data JPA playlist, already I have given that video. Or you can type here, custom generator. Custom generator Ashok IT. Yeah, data JPA working with custom generators. So I will share this link. Now you can access this. In the mail also, I will send you that. Let me copy this link. Yeah, in the chat box, I'm giving you this link. Please access this. Yes, sir. You can access this. All of you able to access the link? All of you able to access that link?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please save that link, guys. Click on that link. You will get that video. Copy that link and save it. That is the task for you. So today I want you people to complete that. How to work with the custom generator. How to work with the custom generators in the data JP. Please go through that video before coming to tomorrow's session. Is that fine?
Yeah. Hi, sir. This is Vamshi.
Yep, Vamshi.
Yeah, actually, I'm unable to connect with H2 database.
Sir, H2 database I have not yet explained, sir. I will explain that.
Sir, how we create our own custom repository? Actually, I faced in an interview.
Custom repository interface you want to create on your own.
Yes, sir.
If you want to create on your own, you should implement all those methods.
Okay.
Sir, I'm getting SQL error 942. Could you please check it?
Tomorrow I will check that, sir. Just copy that error code in the Google and see that. Tomorrow I will let you know that. Okay?
Sir, I'm copying that code. I'm getting solution for creating one like configuration class, different configuration class. But you
Send
are
your application. Send your application to my mail, sir. I will check it.
So the value is coming by the object only, not coming the data.
Sorry?
The value is coming through object,
Voice
not
is
coming through
breaking.
data set.
Voice is breaking.
Sir, hello.
sir, I sent you one mail for reply, sir, for abscond process. I sent you one mail, but I didn't get any response.
Today you will get it, sir.
So can you please send today's session by evening, today evening, because I miss on 6th, so I'm getting.
I will send it, sir. I will send it. Okay.
And if you
Hello.
change database name, if you change the
Hi, sir.
database from Oracle to
Can
MySQL,
you do
then if you load,
database in one project?
Guys, one by one. Your voice is not clear for me.
Hello.
Sir, can you explain
Sir, now it
JPQL
is
query?
audible, sir.
I don't Can we use two database in one project, sir?
Yes, sir. I will tell you that also. How to use two database in one project, I will tell you. For today, please practice the generators concept. Please go through that custom generator video and come back. Tomorrow I will take up all your questions. Okay.
Sir, MySQL.
MySQL, I will tell you, sir. I will use MySQL one example for that.
Sir, can you please tell me JPQL query one example?
Sure, sir. We will do that.
Sir, the voice is audible, sir.
Yes, what audible?
Sir, the data, whenever you retrieve the value from the database, the value is coming by the object manner. It's not coming proper data.
Tomorrow, please keep your workspace ready. Tomorrow, I will take your system remote and I will check it. Okay. Tomorrow, please remember me that once. Good. Thank you, guys.
Link is not accessible.
Which link?
Now you have shared YouTube.
Just you type in the Google, man. Just custom generator Ashok IT. You will get that video.
Okay, thank you.
In the YouTube, you can type that custom generator Ashok IT. You will get that.
Sir,
Mhm.
the last class video I'm not received,
I
sir.
have sent it, man. Please, today at 8 a.m. I have sent it. Check your mail.
Sir, in project tools is going on, sir, now.
Yes, sir. Tools are complete. I mean, almost completed. We'll start with the mini projects.
For Java 8, any updation?
Java?
Java 8, like any classes will be available?
Yes, sir. Next week we'll plan it, sir. Actually, I told you that, right? We are starting offline classes, so we are busy with that office setup because it is a new institute, right? Within this week, we'll complete all our works. Then from the next week, we'll plan all the batches. Both online and offline will be available.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Thank you,
In
guys.
this batch backup video you sent when on
Mail ID and
Telegram
the
group
mail I
or
have.
in the email directly?
Sure. I will send it.
Okay.